Okay, guys, I'll try this again. I'm laughing at myself today because I thought I hit the go live button and I'm just a talking away and I'm like, well, there's nobody talking back. Say hi, say where you're from. And I forgot to hit the go live button. It is a recipe of what my week has been so far. I'm kind of out of kilter because I got home late on Sunday night. Actually, I got home Monday morning early in the morning, like 1 o'clock. So it's been and started yesterday on Sewing Machines Plus yesterday afternoon trying to get set up for that. So kind of crazy today, got to say. Oops, sorry. So the first question I'm going to answer is from that somebody had asked Angela through the Luminaire class, which she doesn't cover PE design in that. And the person, whoever this is using palette with a Luminaire. Okay. Well, I was sitting here explaining that although palette and PE design are similar and Brother does make both programs, Baby Lock and Brother are not the same company. Okay. Baby Lock is a customer of Brothers, and Baby Brother makes the Baby Lock software, but it doesn't mean they get everything that P Design does. This time around, P Design has a few different features than Palette does. And that's simply because we have a scan and cut machine, they don't, and we do keep some features to ourselves. So one of the other features that they don't have is my Stitch Design Factory, or my Stitch Design Factory. So those are differences. The other differences, I'm not necessarily sure that a palette program will speak wirelessly to a Luminaire because they are not the same. They are not the same company in this situation. The dealers that I've talked to that carry both lines say that their PE design does not pick up the palette wirelessly. Having said that, yes, you can bring a PHX file into palette or into PE design. If you can't go wirelessly, we can do it another way. So that's what I'm going to explain first. And hi guys, thanks for saying you're here and where you're from. It's kind of nice to actually see you there, since I was like, wow, I'm just talking to myself and nobody's popping in. That's just unusual. It does help if you hit the go live button. So, all right, guys. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. We're going to import a PHX file and we're going to save it out as a PES file. And then I'll start answering the other ones, the other questions. So Marcia, I don't know what happened, but I know that I did not hit the go live button. I was talking to myself there for a little bit. So I am going to share my screen here. We'll go to screen number 2, and I'm going to go to this view so you don't see me on the side looking funky. All right, so let's minimize this, and oops, that was actually the correct program. So let me go back and bring that back up. So here's PE Design. If I want to bring in a design from a file folder or a USB stick, I need to go to my import window, because anything that is not a PES file has to be brought in via import. Okay, PES files open, PHX, DST, any other format you import. So when you go to the import window, you choose from folder. And then you select this little file folder thing right there. I'm going to click the file folder and I'm going to choose where I want to get it from. So let me go up here and find the USB drive. I think nope, it's not that one. So it must be this one. Nope. E, there we go. All right. And you're going to look in the B pocket. Okay. So if I look in my B pocket, these are the files that I have saved off my USB onto my USB drive. And that's what I've got there. So if I come in and I grab this one right here and import it, there's my design. Okay. So how to save it? You simply go up to the application button and choose save as. It will automatically save it as a PES file. You do not have to change that. You may want to change it to a different hoop size. So if let's go in here and let's go to hoop size. So if all you see is version 11, then that means you're in a different hoop. You have a different hoop size selected than what everything can read. So depending on the hoop size that you select will depend on what format you can save it in. So if you wanted to save it in a previous version, you have to have a hoop size that actually fit in that previous version. And your most common one will be the 4x4. It will have every version of PE Design that we have. And that's how you get it. But if you want it in a different format, you have to export that design. So PE Design only saves as PES. It exports as everything else. Same way with the import. It only opens PES, but it imports everything else. Okay. And yes, Palette has its own design database, which is exactly like PE Designs, but you have to whether it talks wirelessly is the wild card, because I don't know that it recognizes our serial numbers. If I were planning on going wirelessly, this is how you can check. If you go up to options up at the right-hand side and choose options, over here where it says network machine settings, if you choose add and your sewing machine pops up there, then you'll know you'll be able to connect wirelessly to it. So I'm going to choose Rhoda because she's the one that's open and turned on. We'll touch her and say, okay. Now when I go to instead of folder, network sewing machine, it will look at everything that I have wirelessly transferred back and forth between my machine and PE Design. I've got to do something real quick. My pup wants her seat. Oy. Here you go, baby. All right. So now I'm going to say, okay. I don't know why it popped that out. That is very weird. All right, while we're waiting on that to do its thing, I'll come back. But if your machine does not show up there, that means it's not going to be able to communicate wirelessly back and forth. So now mine is showing, and I can show you what we've got. It takes a few minutes for it to recognize it and see. So these are all the designs that I have saved wirelessly on my machine, from my machine to my PE Design. So when I save wirelessly, there we go. Okay. And that's how that one goes. Any questions on that? All right. So my next question was from Caroline. Caroline, I'm still working on yours, but I think the reason it's resizing that square, that rectangle on you is because you have turned the outline off. And I think if you add 0.6, so instead of saying 12.5, say 12.56, so add 0.06 to it, I think, and the 9, change the 9 to 9.56, I think it will come out to the size you want it. The difference is it's looking at that outline as well. Even though you've turned it off, it's looking at that boundary. So I think when you send your design from My Design Center on the machine into embroidery, that's what's happening. Okay. So mine changed it both times, but I mean, if I have just a running stitch outline, it still changed it. But I haven't tried it with the satin stitch outline. So what I'm saying is just add, like, instead of 12.5, put 12.56, because I got really close that way. I think my upper number was right on, and my lower number may have been off by 1. So I may have to add 0.57 to the bottom number. Just try that. I'm not sure. I will report the issue and see what they come back with, but that's from me playing with just before I came on live to see what was going on. Okay, so another person came in and asked about the stippling with the pumpkin that we talked about last week. Did I save that pumpkin? I don't remember. So let's come in and grab a shape, and we're going to grab a rectangle. And I'm going to turn off my outline just so we don't have to deal with it, and change to a motif stitch. And when I went into my sewing attributes, I do believe, let's see, yep, I did save my pumpkin. Here's my pumpkin. So I'm going to put my pumpkin in there and say, okay. And she was saying when I wanted to do stippling first, stippling, and then use a motif and then choose my pumpkin. So let me come and pull my pumpkin in. And she was saying when she changed the size of her pumpkin, she just got lines. What you need to do, first of all, is change the spacing of the stippling so that you spread it out so that when you come in here, actually the spacing of the stippling as well. I'm going to put this one back to the default. And then when you come in here, choose maintain aspect ratio and then try changing the size of those pumpkins. Now I've got a jumble. That means I need to change this more like 25. So you got to keep in mind what you've got going on. So I'm going to make it further apart, and then let's space the motifs themselves further apart so it has room to make them. And as you watch it on screen, you'll see what happens. So I may need to go up even further. But your goal is to try to get those to where you can actually see that you've got a pumpkin and you can actually see that you have stippling. So I think that's way too high, but this should give you that option. That's not bad. Anyhow, that's how that works, okay? The other question that she sent in was create floral lines. And this is one of my favorite tools. So I'm going to change this back to a fill stitch. It doesn't matter because you're going to get rid of it. And we want to turn on a stitch here. Create floral, wrong button. Create floral lines is a fun little tool, and you can use it with any shape. And if you choose that, you can choose how many repeats, the density is your number of repeats. It automatically gives you 8 shapes to choose from. If you go to detailed mode and you slide this slider bar, there are 251 patterns that you can select from. And as you drag that slider along that bar, it changes things. So you can get quite fun things here. And you're looking at what's happening in the center, not necessarily at what's happening with the outline. So I'm going to come, let's say we want that one right there. When I say okay, I'll then come back in and select my base circle, move my cursor into the design window and press delete. And so this is my ending shape. And what's fun about playing with this one is that you can put different stitches on it. So you can put motif stitches on it. You can put stem stitches on it. You can put blanket stitches on it. You can change that from a blanket stitch to a V stitch. That gives you a totally different look. And you can do your chain stitches with it. So you can really have some fun with those. Keep that in mind. So yes, it's like the old spirograph machines. So that one's a lot of fun to play with. You can do it with any shape. So for instance, let me come over here and grab this, and let's delete this one and go into our import window, and let's change it to outline shapes. Let me see here. Let's pick floral. So I'm going to grab that little flower shape, and we'll make it a little bit bigger. And let's see what happens when we do it with this one. Let's do create floral pattern. Well, it looks kind of funny. Remember, that base shape will not be sewing. So let's go to detailed mode. And when you come in here and play, it gives you different looks. And I kind of like that one right there. I'm going to say okay, go back in, grab my base shape and press delete. And there, that's the design you're left with. It kind of looks like some little hearts. And once again, have fun, play with those different stitches that you can use. You can also use candle wicking, but it can get a bit dense depending on what you're doing. If you do candle wicking, I suggest you space those way out and you make the size smaller, just so that you don't get so much jammed up on top. But those are quite fun to play with, okay? All right, let's see here. What else have we got in here? Oh, the lettering on the back of the hat. Some that was sent earlier today. Lettering on the back of a mesh hat. You are going to need a stabilizer that is going to stay. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you, because there's nothing to hold that thread in that hat. Okay. With a mesh hat, you've got an open weave. There's nothing that's going to hold it. So you're either going to have to put like a piece of organza behind it, or you're going to have to put a stabilizer that's going to stay like a no-show mesh. Something that is going to stay to give the threads something to grip onto. The other thing that I'll tell you is that if she said she had BES4, so what I would do, since you were using small lettering, I don't remember what the text was, but I'm going to put in my name. So last week we talked a lot about pull compensation, and this is one of those times that I would add in pull compensation. So let me come in here and look and see how small I can make that one. I can make it 0.5. So let me go to, let's do a font category filter, and let's choose small fonts and see what we have. Don't like that one. I want plain bold 5 millimeters. So let's see what we get there. That's 0.2 inches. So let's apply that. Now let's come down here and see if we can add in, nope, can't add any pull compensation to those. So we're going to have to go with a regular font. Let's turn off our small font filter and go back to all. And then let's just come find a plain one. I'm going to go down to, let's see here. I'm going to use my arrow key so you guys can see what I'm doing. So let's say we go with Hortons. Where did that go? All right. I'm going to use Hortons, and we're going to change the size to 0.25. And we'll say apply. Now let me zoom in. We'll zoom to selection. Ooh, that's ugly. It doesn't, oh, I put 0.4, 0.25. Does help if you actually touch the correct numbers. There we go. Zoom to selection. Now, what I personally would do is I would reduce my density. So if we come down here and look, and you can, she wanted to arc her text. I can change that to an arc here in a minute. But I would change my density. On this one, the higher the number, the less dense it is. So you might go with 0.5 in this program. It's the opposite in PE design. So go to 0.5 and then add in some undersewing. So you might add in perpendicular, contour, throw everything but the kitchen sink in there. See what you can get in to where you give it something to set upon. That way, I'd rather you have the undersewing density in there than to increase your density of the font itself. Now, if you want to arc it, we can always go back to our text tool, right mouse click, and say circle text. And now let's go look at our circle text. There you go. It's in your arc. Okay. So that's what I would tell you. Okay. Next question. What? I'm forgetting one. I'm trying to think. Yes, Susan, that was in P Design 11. Actually, the create offset, the create floral lines is in both 10 and 11. So, okay, let me see what else I've missed today. Let's see here. Oh, so that was Sharon's. The pumpkin and the floral patterns was Sharon Bailey's question. Let's see here. What else? I'm trying to think if there's something else. So if I've forgotten your question, let me know. So now you guys can ask whatever you want. I do not have anything prepared for today. I am running by the seat of my pants right now. Let's see here. I'm looking to see if there's anything popping up here. No, there's not. Oh, yes. Okay, Gay. Yes, I can change an SVG into a PES file. So I'm not sure if I've got one, but let me go look and see. Let's go to P Design 11. And where you see import patterns here, choose from vector image. Let's see, what have I got? Give it a second to think about it. Okay, I'm not crazy about those. All right, let's say I do that one. It is automatically converted into an embroidery design. Bam, you're done. You can finesse it and do whatever you want to with it, but that's what it's done with it. So it will automatically convert for you, and it automatically groups it for you. So just keep that in mind. There are some SVGs and WMF files built into P Design 11. If I go into this PC, see Program Files x86 and choose Brother, P Design 11, and it would be clip art. Vector images. These are your SVG files. So when you open it, it automatically converts it. Now you can play with these all you want. So if you want to come in and pick a different stitch type, you can certainly do that. So if you wanted that to be a motif, you can make it a motif. If you want it to be a concentric circle, any of those stitches that we have available to us, you can have fun and play with. It gives you all of those options. Okay. Next question. And Edna, that's exciting. You got your upgrade today. Very fun. Very fun. So what else is there while we're sitting here and talking about what things you can do with shapes? So I'm going to come in and grab my, boy, that's interesting. I kind of like that one. Yes, the grapes could have been made into an applique. I'll do that in just a second. So if I do my create offset lines, this is kind of like your echo quilting activity. This will automatically keep, will expand the shape, the distance away from the outline, and it uses whatever outline you've got. So you can go outwards or inwards, but let's say we wanted another heart a little bit of distance away from this one. So I'll go with 9 millimeters. Notice how it goes around it. If you want it to round the corners instead of point them, choose rounded corners. So see how that one rounded my tip off? If I take rounded corners off and choose preview, it just goes straight. I, a lot of times, will use this in conjunction with my spirographs. So if I come in and let's go back to our circle. So I'm going to come in here with my circle and I'm going to do create offset, not create offset, create floral lines, floral patterns. So let's choose this one. And I'm going to grab this guy and move him down. Whoops. Let's just get rid of this guy. Actually, yeah, let's get rid of that one. Now, if I come and grab this little guy right here and go shapes, oops, nope, undo. I got a little excited there. So I want to grab this one right here and I want to go create offset lines. From that, I can go outward and let's do our spacing like 20. Okay, let's go down to 10. So the first one, I want to go right along the outside edge. That's perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to delete my original line. There we go. So now I can come in and grab this one and go create offset lines again. And let's say we want to go outward again, 5 more millimeters. Say okay. You could actually go and do 2 at a time. So if I come and say create offset lines and my offset count, I want to have 2 and have them at 5 millimeters. You'll notice it's just echoing out from it. And now you can come in and play. And let's say I want this one to be a different color and a different stitch. Then I want this one to be a different color and a different stitch. And I want this one to be a different color and a different stitch. You have total control. You can play with that and have fun. I actually did an entire quilt just out of shapes and playing with the floral lines and the offsets. And it is one of the coolest quilts I've done. It's an art quilt. used my Sukanico metallic inks for the base on black fabric, and I used metallic thread in the entire thing. I used the Brother Metallics. They're expensive, but they are worth it. They ran without a single break at full bore. So that is one of my favorite quilts. I'll see if I can't remember to pull it out the next time that I have a live. It will not be next week. I am out of town next week. Okay. All right. Let me go back over and let's see here. Yes, you can turn a PES file into an FCM file, but it does need to be, hold on, I'll show you what I mean. It's going to be different segments. So let me go to my import window and let's choose Design Library and grab this. So if I want just my flowers and I don't want the other part, all right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go up and we're going to go smaller so y'all can see it. So you see my little flowers there and my leaves. If I do this right now, if I go to my Scan and Cut tab and I choose Export and I take the offset spacing all the way down, you'll notice that it's all combined, and that's not what I want. So what I would do instead is go to my Stitches tab, divide by color, and then select the color that I want it to send to the Scan and Cut machine. At that point, when I say Scan and Cut and Export, I should be able to take it all the way down. Now it's still got those together. So let's see what we've got. Let's see if we can come and take this. And let's see what happens if we convert whole to an outline. Oh, I see what's happening. Since those are overlapping, that is a very poor choice. And let me show you what I mean. Do you see how those two flowers are overlapping? That is why it's doing what it's doing. So I could come in here and go to my select point tool, but aha, let's split that at point. So now they should be two separates. And let's see what happens. Now let's try our Scan and Cut tab. So if I want them separated, I'm going to grab one flower, go to my Scan and Cut tab and choose Export. Now we can take it all the way down. You would send the flowers one at a time. You have to look at how the design is working, how the design itself is working. But when you choose Export, take that shape all the way down and you can save it as an FCM file, or if you send it to Canvas Workspace, the network error is my computer. Oh, hold on. Okay. So it'll pop up and say, okay, to send data to the Scan and Cut. So you can send your data at the same time to the Scan and Cut when you say send to Canvas Workspace. That will actually save in Canvas Workspace. Okay. Marsha, he's actually had a really bad week. Last week was a terrible week at the end of the week. He had a pulmonary embolism. Luckily, they caught it and they were able to take it out on Friday. He's still in the hospital. So it's been a rough week for him. Last week was a really rough week. It was a huge embolism. I was shocked. All right. Let's see here. But thank you for asking. I do appreciate it. Now, so Edna, I told you I'd go back and show you how to make the grapes into an FCM file. So let me go home and go import patterns from vector image and let's grab those grapes. This one's actually pretty simple. We just need to ungroup it. And then you can go to the applique wizard and you can choose replace, click OK, it's done. The only thing that I would do is I would probably split it point on those corners so that, let's see here, let's change our covering stitch color to something so we can tell the difference between them. Now, I had blanket stitch selected, so it automatically does not do an undersewing for part of it. But if you wanted to if you want to what am I trying to say? If you want to remove the overlap, I need to ungroup everything first. And then I can come and grab my blanket stitch for this one. Do my select tool, select point, right mouse click here and split it at point. And then go to the opposite side, right mouse click there, and oh, I want to do it on the purple, and I am on the purple. So split at point. And then that segment should be by itself here. And you can double click and then delete that cover. Actually, you need to be on the select tool, select it, and delete it. So then you don't have that double stitching. Okay. I have had many questions on how to turn an FCM file into an applique file. Import. Here's your, let's see here, let me find something. Let me find my FCM files. I should have some here. All right, we've done my strawberry a gazillion times, so we're going to do it again. Let me zoom out, and I'm going to make it smaller. So here's my FCM file, and when it's brought in, it is automatically converted into an embroidery file. So these are actually stitches. At that point, you can come in and choose what you want to do with it. So for this guy, you'll notice he has an open spot, which means if I select him, I cannot, the applique wizard should not work for me, but let's see. Yeah, no, it doesn't work very well. It goes around it because it can only add it. That's not what we would want. So in order to make that one work, we would need to select this piece. And then let's right mouse click here and see if it'll let me close my shape. Yep, right mouse click and choose close, and that shape will then close. And that's fine for it to close like that because once again, you would do split at point and get rid of those covering stitches. But I would personally take that line and add one more right there just so that it goes up underneath, or play with that shape a little bit. If you don't want that much fabric underneath there, you can come in and add edit nodes and pop them in. But you certainly can do that. I've done, we've gone over that many, many times, so just kind of keep that in mind. Vicki, then no, you cannot do that in P Design Next. We do not have the scan and cut feature in P Design Next. Oh, wait a minute. So let me come over here and read this. Yes. Trace over, because that outline is so thick, if you will instead trace over it with a fine tip marker and then scan that in at 100 DPI, it will not give you those same thicknesses. There is a way around that, and it is in all forms. So if you go to your image tab and you do auto punch, let's see here if I come grab one of these guys right here. This is a good example of that. When you go next, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. What design settings do I have? Yep, that's good. So let's say fit it to my page. I'm going to say next, and that's fine. I'm going to show you what you need to do. You touch create lines, and so whatever color you want it to create the line from, you choose create line, and it will then change that to an outline. It is not going to, depending on your artwork, depends on how well that will convert. But your best option is to delete that outline part and then just turn on the outline for what you've actually digitized. So auto punch is not always your best friend. It is an automatic process. You do not have the same controls as you have if you draw it yourself. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you do it in, I'm assuming you did it in Design Center in the software. So Oh, if you convert it to blocks, for sure, it's going to make it looks at an outline as a region. You should not need to convert it to blocks. And if you did it, the image in Design Center, so let's go into Design Center. And I'm not going to worry about anything massive here. So it's going to bring up my Design Center here in a second. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to open up an image. So we're going to pretend I scanned this in. Oops. I want to do image, open image. Okay, so let's say we're doing this guy right here. It's like a digital coloring book. If you take your little eyedropper and you pick what is the outline, and if you get any other colors, then take that check mark off. Preview it, you should have an outline image, and then click OK. Go to figure handle, which if you went in the automatic process, it should automatically take you in this. And if you have thick outlines, increase your thinning process. And let's see what happens when we say OK. So you'll notice how it merged my big thick outlines into a thinner one. If I go back to line image, you always want to delete the figure data, but I'm going to take my thinning process down to less so you can see the difference. Do you see how I have double outlines there? That's not optimal. So if you if you see double outlines, go back up, delete your progress, and increase your thinning process, and that will give you that shape. This is one of those things that you kind of have to get used to. You can bring your image up. If you go to the View tab, you can turn your image on behind it, which allows you to play with your editing nodes. You click to add one, and then you left click and move it. So that's how this process works. And you can sit and futz with this all day long, however much you want to futz with it. That the automatic process is okay, but I think it does better if you come in and futz with it and make it the shape that you want it. I don't worry about is it exactly matching the outline, because nobody's ever going to see your outline. Make it the shape that you want it to be. Make it sure that it looks good when you zoom out, because that's going to be what people are going to see. Once you've done all your editing here, you go to your sew settings and you come in and you fill it with color. So region, pick your color, and just then click in there and go for it. Let me grab this setting. So this brings your sewing attributes up. When you choose your color, it brings your sewing attributes up. And you can come in and pick your different colors as you go along. If you right mouse click, it will grab the same attributes from that area that you were just working on. Let's say we want a black tail. Now I'm going to sit here and tell you, you do not want everything to be going the same direction. I left everything at the same direction so you can see. If you look at it in preview mode here in just a second, if I look at this in preview mode, let me zoom in. You can see all of my stitches are going in the same direction. That is not optimal. If you stitch your design out with everything going the same direction, you will not have good results. You have to get out of preview mode in order to change it. Go back and select your region tool, and then you can right mouse click and adjust the direction. And then click back on that area to apply it. If you don't like the way the tongue looks, you can always back up a step to stage 2 and play with it. I don't like the way that tongue looks, so I'm going to come in here and futz with it a little bit. The settings that I had previously that I've already applied in the next stage will appear when I go back, unless I open the area for some reason. Okay, so if I hit next, now you can see I like my tongue a little bit better. You can play with this, but right mouse click brings up the settings. Let me bring that back over here. Brings up your settings. You'll see that I have undersewing. You'll see that my direction is going 45 degrees. If I want to change it, I can either type in a number or rotate it, and then click back on that area to apply it. And you can always look at it in Realistic Preview as well. You cannot change direction in Realistic Preview. You'll notice that I have a light and a dark here. Let's see what's happening with that. If we look at our stitch simulator, it will show you how this is going to stitch. So let's go to those tan colors. I'm going to fast forward to my tan and see how that's stitching. It usually, in layout and editing, it starts at the low spot in the design. So I'm still on the rust down here. Let me fast forward a color. There it goes. So usually it starts stitching at the low spot in the design, which was right here. So it will connect back up in the low spot depending on what you've got in there. It's right now doing the undersewing. That's where we were getting that shadowing. So you kind of have to look at it and say, okay, if my low spot's here, what direction's going to be best for me? And I'm going to fast forward this a little bit more. Let's see if we can't get it moving a little quicker. So it's going to go to this spot, and then it's going to come back over here and come back. And it's showing us that either in this, evidently this is a new change for 10. Usually, I mean for 11, usually in 10 and before, you got to see a little heavier stitch. So for this one, let's get out of our stitch simulator. If I change my direction, let's try the low spot in the design is right here. So let's try 0 or 2. I don't usually like to go 0. So let's go 2 and see what happens with that, with those ears now. Oops, wrong button. Stitch simulator. So let's go fast forward to the tan. There we go. Now let's watch it stitch. Our undersewing met at the center, but this should go top to bottom. And it did. So just by changing your angle can make it work for you. And that is a design center thing. Now, what I will tell you is that if I can't get it to work the way I want it to here, when I send it to layout and editing, you can send it as outlines and choose import, and then you have control over it. So I must have had a bigger hoop selected than I thought I did. So if I come in here now and look at this, since I sent it as outlines, I would personally turn off the outline stitch, but since I sent it as outlines, I can come in and change where that starts and stops. That gives me that control. So if I was having an issue, I can always send it over as outlines. All right. Terry, docking your attributes. I don't know what you've done, but it happens many times. Many people do it, and then somehow they come over here and dock them over here, and things just get all wonky. Okay, here's what you do. I don't know how you stop it from happening besides tapping the top of it. But if you'll go up to options and choose options, choose user interface settings, reset pane position. Say okay. Say okay again. Close the program, restart it, and they should all be docked back in their original location. Okay? So that's how you kind of combat that. You're somehow tapping it, and you're undocking them, and then you redock them in a different position, and that's wherever they were docked last is where they'll go back to. If you didn't dock them, they don't go, they'll just float around. If you attached it to an external monitor and you had one over here in this screen and one on your main screen, then when you go to open it back up, those will be disappeared. Okay, so if you don't have both monitors attached. So if you just go back, go up to the options pull down menu, choose options, and then network sewing machine settings, user interface settings, reset pane position, close the software, reopen it, you're back in good spot. And it is a whole lot faster than reloading the software. Okay. All right. The convert to blocks, Marcia. So there's a convert to blocks and then there's a convert to outline. Convert to blocks, if you are trying to resize a design or if you want to alter a design and try to keep the original properties there, converting to blocks will do that. So let's pull something in here. If I go up to my stitches tab and I say convert to blocks, what it does is it breaks the colors down into sections, into blocked sections. I usually leave my settings at normal. That's me. But you'll notice it did change the stitch types. So if I want this to go back to satin stitches, I would need to select the top options because you can't put a satin stitch on a running stitch. So the way it converts things to blocks these days is a little unusual. I'm holding my control key down in my sewing order window and clicking on the parts that are that should be satin stitches, the fill stitch portions of this. And I'm going to keep going at it. But what it allows you to do is actually can change angles, resize, manipulate this to make it your own if you want to. And that's actually, I have explained convert to blocks pretty well in my workbook. So if you have my workbook, you'll have the convert to blocks section. But now you can see that I've changed all those back into satin stitches. But what convert to blocks allows me to do is come in and adjust the shape of something and adjust the angle and play with the densities. It gives me more control over my design than if I convert it to outline, because convert to outline is just going to turn everything into a fill stitch and based on however it feels like it needs to do it. So you can actually come in and play and manipulate this design a little bit more when you convert it to blocks. It lets you play with the different outline stitches. If I want to play with those, I mean that fill stitch. If I want to look at this one, this section right here, and I don't want to ungroup it because I don't want to ungroup this design. Your Alt key on your keyboard will let you select just that section. And then you can come in and say, well, you know, I think I want that to be a piping stitch. I don't, but you can say I want that particular one to be a programmable fill stitch. And then you can come and choose your programmable fill stitch. Let's say we wanted it to be stars. Okay. It gives you the ability to pick what you want to do. But it gives you control over a design. For instance, if you have a design that comes in and it's bulletproof, do y'all know what I mean when I say bulletproof embroidery? The digitizer gave you too much density. And so your embroidery walks ahead of you is what I would consider it. You put it on the front of a chest and it's stiffer than a board, which means it's bulletproof. It's too dense and it doesn't look good. What you can do is you can bring the design in and you convert it to blocks and you can adjust the density. So you could reduce your density down to where it's not bulletproof embroidery. At one time, that was the only way we could resize with stitch recalculation. That's not the case anymore. You can simply hold down the control key while resizing to recalculate stitches and it should maintain it. Especially in 10 and 11, they did a much better job with that whole resizing thing. So before 10, when you resized with the control key, it changed your stitch properties. And that's when we would end up going and converting to blocks and getting things back. But now, let's bring this same design back in. And let me change my hoop size to a bigger hoop so we have something to go into. Rotate. Okay. So if I hold my control key down, when I put my cursor in that corner, do you see how it has that little stitch looking icon on it? If I hold the control and the shift, if I pull this out, it resizes with stitch recalculation. Now it knows when it hits a certain point that it must change the stitch to a fill stitch. So obviously those satin stitches got too large for it. If you do a control and a shift, it will stay in the center of the design. But those stitches right there got too large for a satin stitch, okay? Let me see if I can find one that would not do that. There, that one might work for us. I usually do control and shift at the same time so it will stay in the center of my hoop. But you'll notice it resized, and if we look down at the bottom, it recalculated. Let me undo. So it was down here at the bottom left, it shows me it's 509 stitches. If I hold down my control key and resize, it's now 948. So it's resizing and recalculating. Okay. But used to, the only way that we could do that was to convert it to blocks. Now you don't have to do that for the most time. My book does not cover the new features in version 11, Terry, because I have not written it. It is going to be a supplement to 10, but I have not written the supplement. And if my family would start getting healthy and stop going into the hospital with brain things, we might get it done. So that, that's kind of where I'm at on that. Eventually I may get it done. What we think, somebody brought this to my attention and I have not had time to figure it out. It has something to do with things have to be in the corners, we think, to make them connect. So when I do an entire square, it works perfectly. But it's when we're trying to connect weird shapes, something needs to be in the corners. So that therein lies the challenge, and I'm working on it. Yes, anything more than 10 millimeters, it is changing to, it could be 9, but 10 millimeters or more, it's changing to a fill stitch. Okay. All right, guys. If there is nothing else, then I guess I'm done for the day. I don't see any other questions. Yes. If you did it in Illustrator and you save it as an SVG, you should be able to bring it in P-Design as a vector image, just like I did a minute ago. I do not see any other questions. So if there is nothing else, I'm going to say goodbye. Just keep in mind, I will not be on next week. I am going to be in East Tennessee playing with my brother. So, Vicki, I do not think I've talked about Design Center in previous videos because it is more tedious for most people. That is covered extensively in my workbook. So these are not true classes, guys. These are tips and tricks that I give you. If you have specific questions, I'll be happy to answer those, but I'm not going to sit here and do an entire lesson on Design Center ins and outs because I've written it. It's in full detail. Thanks, Carolyn. I've worked with the first version of P-Design. I mean, I've had P-Design since I was in my 30s. So I've had every version of it, every single version of it. If you would like to order a book, let me see what I've got here. I have not made these active on my website yet. The coupon code for BES4 would be LET4. For P-Design 10 would be DIG10. Remember that I sell the workbook for 10 for 11 because the only thing that's going to be different are the new features that have been added. Everything else besides one other, I mean, they are rearranged, and I can tell you exactly what they rearranged a little bit. Here in the edit area, they pulled out rotate, flip, and group out of the arrange area. And that is the only difference of what they changed here. And they added background fill. So everything else is pretty much the same interface. um, so I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Keep in mind, if you don't order before I leave for Knoxville, you're dependent on my husband. I am the shipping department, and when I leave, my substitute shipping department comes in and kicks on. That would be my husband. It is only the two of us, and he works. So he ships out when he can. And I send him the orders and tell him that, hey, this is out there. Can you ship it? And he will do his best to get it out the next day. But if he doesn't hit it that day, he doesn't hit it. Keep in mind, the book is huge. The one for PE Design 10 is over 1,000 pages. So when you ask me why shipping is so expensive, that's why shipping is so expensive. I charge you what they charge me. I will tell you that right now UPS is a cheaper option to choose. So if you look, you'll see FedEx and UPS. If you don't see UPS immediately, go look at your shipping options. UPS has been the cheapest, the least expensive to ship lately. And you can select it. Some people don't like UPS, some people don't like FedEx. It is up to you. I do not send books USPS. I've had too many issues with that. Okay. If you're going with a multi-needle, it depends on what you want on your machine. I personally love my 10 needle. Having said that, a 6 needle is a beautiful machine as well, especially now that the 680W has added the little laser lining up tool. What I like about my 10 needle is the built-in camera. I can scan what's down in my machine bed to see where I want to lay things. I can use the live camera mode, and there are 10 colors that I can use without having to reload. However, having said that, and it uses the snowman positioning. Having said that, that laser guideline is the bomb when it comes to just putting shirts in and out, because you can mark your shirt. You can put on either a magnetic frame or the clamp frame and put that crosshair down and just slide your shirt up underneath there, and you're good to go. Clamp it down and go for it, because you can see where that crosshair is. So it really depends on what you're looking for and what your budget is. I love my 1055. It really just depends on what you're looking for. All right, guys. So I will put the coupon code up for you after I get done. I'll make it active when we get done today. Yes. So I mean, that's up to you. You might split it between Design Center and Layout and Editing, but you can actually take it. Be careful. Make sure they pay attention. They can chop off the spline at Staples or an office place. Chop off the spline, and they can put holes, and they'll spiral bind it for you. So and Marsha loves her 10 needle. So that's up to you how you want to split it. But I've known some people to do it into 3 sections. Other people do it into 2. The Lettering So Easy book is, gosh, what is it? About 800 pages. Hold on. I've got one down here. They are not, this one is around a little over 600. So they're not small things, and they have screenshots for everything. All right. So yes, husbands are second string, but I can't do without mine. So he's very good. All right, guys. Yes, open the book. Usually it will tell you. And there is not an index, but there is an extensive table of contents. And if you don't know where to look for something, shoot me an email, and I can generally tell you what to look for in your table of contents if I don't have the actual file with me to say, okay, look on this page. Okay. All right, guys, you all have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you in a couple of weeks, hopefully. Bye.